Hi.
What's up, guys? How's it going? I'm Chingis.
I'm Bethany.
And welcome to episode 13.
Yeah.
Lucky number 13, I guess.
Lucky in our case.
I think so. This is going to be our first show after we went public, per se, where we announced that we're doing a show together. And so we're hoping to see if anybody was going to show up and see watch and whatnot. But so far, zero. But that's okay.
We just got on. Give people a chance.
No, I agree, 100%. So I think today we wanted to talk about salt, like table salt or any sort of salt that you might be consuming in general. And we also wanted to talk about long distance friendships.
Yeah. If for those of you who don't know, I moved from California to Boston, and I think in your case, you had friends that were super local that grew up with you, and now you guys are in kind of different directions. So we were going to explore those dynamics, and yeah. I'm excited.
Should we start with salt or should we start with?
Let's start with salt.
Okay. So I think me and you read an article today that was talking about the FDA's recommendation for salt intake and how it's saying that we should really be reducing the amount of salt. The average person should be reducing the average amount of salt in order to increase the likelihood of better outcomes for a population. Whatever the fuck that means. Basically, it's like kind of like I don't really understand what the recommendation is for per individual, right? Something like, well, if you're eating too much salt, maybe reduce it. If you're eating too little salt, maybe increase it. But like, it doesn't really say enough about what one person is doing for them to actually take the recommended advice from the FDA and run with it. I feel like most of the time, the FDA is always going to be on the safe side where it says reduce the amount of salt no matter what. Versus like somebody who's eating almost no salt, it's like, mate, you should probably be eating more salt. And I think that anybody in general could probably be benefiting from eating more salt, just from like the research that we've been doing.
Yeah, so just to give a little bit more context, so the article was saying the FDA says 2.3 grams of sodium, which is salt, per day for a person, which isn't a lot. It's really not a lot. So they were saying that this was based on studies done in the 1960s, actually, where a guy had done a bunch of tests on rats and he gave them 150 times that amount of sodium and went, oh, their blood pressure is through the roof. And so because of that, the FDA kind of jumped on it and demonized salt as being the reason for having high blood pressure, heart attacks, strokes, that whole side of things. And they kind of put salt as the blame for that. Meanwhile, they've done studies now showing populations across the globe, and one of the highest salt populations of people had the lowest rates of cardiac issues, high blood pressure, and all of that. And so can you really tie it to salt when really there's so much more at play? So going on with the article, sorry, I don't mean to go on and on. So continuing on with the article, Element, which is the brand that we love, where we get our sodium intake, where we put it into our water. It's electrolytes, it's a great blend. We'll get more into that. But based on some of the studies that they had looked at when they were formulating their salt, they saw that a huge part of why we have such high blood pressure, cardiac issues, all that isn't due to the salt, but it's the fact that the processed foods that we're eating just contain a lot of crap. They have chemicals in general that are causing these issues, and there's no way that you can just isolate that down to salt.
And so like coming at it from the element perspective, it's like a lot of people could benefit with more salt, especially like if you're just healthy in general. And you probably shouldn't be doing what the FDA is saying and you should be doing the opposite almost. So not to disagree with you a little bit, I think that the messaging around salt could be a little better in the sense that like if you're generally a healthy individual who works out and is athletic, you could probably stand to benefit from more salt. Versus what the FDA I think is trying to say is when they look at a population, say of like the United States of America, they're taking like a sample size of 100,000 people, all body types, all ages, men and women, and saying that the recommendation for everybody should be a reduced amount of salt. And that doesn't work. You know what I mean? You can't look at a population, get the average amount of salt intake for them, take that and derive some sort of conclusion for each individual person. Like the recommendations for a person should be individualized to what that person's lifestyle is like. So
Yeah.
as somebody who's sedentary, who's somebody who is eating too many processed foods, yeah, probably reducing the amount of salt intake um, you do every day will probably be a good thing. A lot of processed foods also use a lot of salt in their processing foods in order to, like, as a preservative or something else, in order to make it taste better, make it stay on the shelf longer. Versus somebody who doesn't eat as much processed foods, somebody who cooks a lot at home in terms of like veggies, meats, any sort of like starches, they could probably stand to increase the amount of salt into their diet.
Yeah,
So
100%.
I'm not disagreeing with you per se, but I also don't want to take the FDA's word for a lot of things, because what the FDA is doing with epidemiological studies is that they are still coming to conclusions off of large populations.
Sure.
And you can't take the conclusions of large populations and apply it to individual people. No matter how much they say you can't.
Sure.
Like, you just can't.
I would agree with that. However, studies show optimal salt levels are actually between 4 and 6 grams for people daily. That's assuming, again, kind of going back to what you were saying, that people are moving, they're active, they're exercising, all of that. However, I just don't trust the FDA in general. Okay, if you ever want to see me heated about anything in life, get me started talking about health insurance companies or about like the FDA and health, like just general medical anything. There's so much I could go off on when it comes to that. Part of me really wants to right now. Anyways, but if you're, for example, a marathoner, to your point, you need to be having salt. You were sweating out so much sodium and you need to have that. And then same thing too, one thing that I always notice when I'm taking hot yoga classes, I'm always looking around to see who has their water bottles with them. And so often I find that people either don't have a water bottle on them or they think that they're such a badass for not taking sips of water, even though they're drenched in sweat and losing all this sodium and all their electrolytes. And to me, that is crazy. Like, in what world does sweating like crazy and dehydrating yourself equate to, I am such a fitness badass? Since when? Come on now. It drives me nuts. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. So if you are doing hot yoga, bring your electrolytes. You need to be drinking electrolytes.
Yeah, because whenever we do yoga, we always bring electrolytes with us.
Yeah.
Honestly, whenever we go to the gym, we always bring electrolytes with us and just drink electrolytes in between workouts, in between sets, in between like different types of either cardio or lifting or things like that.
Yeah.
And so like this is every single time we go to the gym.
Yeah.
We bring like a, I don't know, like a normal water bottle, like a metal kind of like insulated one, and we fill it up with water, and then we put one packet of the Element brand salt into it. Yeah,
Element is spelled LMNT, so it's Element without the vowels in it. They do have a nice ratio. They have potassium in it. They have magnesium in it as well, which is great. Prevents cramping. But what was I going to say? As far as the salt. Shoot, where was I going with that?
I don't know. One thing.
I had a thought.
Try to figure that one out. But try to remember it. One thing I did want to bring up also is that we are currently discussing salt and sodium interchangeably.
Sure.
But they're not quite the same.
That's true.
Salts include a lot of different things, including, I guess, I don't know, potassium. Potassium is an electrolyte. It's not really a salt. No. There are different types of salts out there. But generally, when we say that we're talking about salts, we're talking about sodium chloride, which is sodium, which you find in like table salt.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, instead of referring to salts, we really should be talking about electrolytes.
Sure.
Such as, again, salt is an electrolyte, potassium is an electrolyte, magnesium is an electrolyte.
Yeah.
And like there's another one, I forget. Or a couple more, I'm not sure. But those are the big ones that we're talking about. Yeah.
And they're involved in so many enzymatic processes in the body. They help the body accomplish so much. So for example, it's kind of the gatekeeper of getting hydration into the cells of our body. I had someone explain it to me, like, if you're drinking water, it doesn't mean that your cells are able to use that water. Without salt and without electrolytes, it can't get into the cell to help the cell do what it needs to do. And so that's why it's so important to have, because otherwise you're just going to pee out everything that you drink in. So salt is what allows your body to actually take the moisture and take it and do what it needs to do with that.
Yeah, retain the water.
Yeah.
Besides that, you'll just pee it all out.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how all that biology works.
Sure.
But you do need salt in order to retain water, and then you will eventually pee it out, but you'll retain it longer and actually get some value out of it.
Yeah. 100%. I know. So, for example, when we started drinking Element, one thing I noticed was I had more energy throughout the day. It was a significant bump in my energy. You good?
Sorry, I'm good. I just need my water.
We had Chipotle right before this. Hold on. Where's your water?
Sorry about that.
I just look at him and he's like, you're a mess. So when we started taking Element, one thing I noticed immediately, my energy levels bumped up. And then also, too, I was actually surprised my digestive system started to speed up a bit,
Right.
which I was really happy about. I noticed that I was getting better poops, so to speak.
One thing, tangent. I know you just got me in the water, which is great. And I feel like that should be fine in this show. Like, we shouldn't be just like talking at people the entire time. I feel like we should just like have like short breaks where like
water breaks,
or I don't know, look at the stream chat if there's anything there that someone might want to be saying, and then or like take a break and laugh about something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like the one we started today, like, got really into salt and really like educational, like, this is good about salt, this is bad about salt, the FDA sucks.
We did kind of dive in.
Medical system sucks. Blah, 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 blah.
Sorry, like I said, I get so passionate.
Yeah.
I get so passionate
yeah.
about this topic. Just a little bit.
No, I get it.
Bit.
Salt is good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although,
we're laid back. We're cool. Sorry, I'm super weird right now. It was a long day. I'm fading a little bit.
Yeah, it was a long day. But let's bring the energy a little bit in, to borrow a California term or phrase, and make it a little bit easier, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
One more thing about the salt before we move on.
Oh, I didn't want to move on. I just did want to talk about salt some more.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
I was going to say one more thing about the salt. There's a difference between iodized salt and regular salt, and you need to have iodine in your diet. It's something that is really important. However, if you are a small percentage of the population like I am and you have thyroid issues, it's actually something that you probably want to avoid, because it's like if you have Hashimoto's specifically or any other kind of thyroid disease, you would want to consult your doctor about how much salt you should be having, iodized salt specifically. So the salt that we used is sea salt, Himalayan salt. It's all non-iodine salt, and I get trace amounts of iodine through whatever diet and water that we get.
So does that mean I'm not getting enough iodine in my diet?
It's possible, actually. That's funny. I had never thought of that. That's actually a really good point.
We'll have to look into that.
I would say we'll have to look into that, yeah.
So what happens if you don't get enough iodine in your diet?
That's a good question.
Does my thyroid start to go weird?
It could, because I know that iodine is actually really important for thyroid health in general. Unless you have a thyroid condition, then it's kind of putting fuel to a fire. That's a great question. We're going to look into that. We will get back to you on that.
Well, I'm just concerned about my health a little bit. I don't feel bad. I feel like whatever salt we're using, whatever diet we're using, I feel completely fine.
Yeah.
Plus, it's like whenever we go out and we get like Chipotle or something else like that, they put so much sodium into everything.
Right.
So much salt in the Chipotle we had today. So I feel like I'm just getting all the iodine I need from that too.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm assuming like when we eat tortilla chips and things like that, there's probably iodized salt on it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not too concerned about my health. I feel fine. I had 95% recovery last night.
Rub it in.
And 100% sleep score. Yeah, no, 100% sleep score, meaning that I got 100% of the sleep I needed and 95% recovery out of a total 100%. So like I woke up this morning, my Whoop was telling me like, hey, go to the gym. Your target strain today is between 14 and 19. And I just told Whoop to fuck itself because I'm like...
Just for reference, you guys, Whoop only goes up to 21 strains. So to ask for a 14 and 19 strain, that's asking for a decently high strain day.
I just didn't feel completely recovered from our workouts 2 days ago and 3 days ago. Because I feel like we really went hard at the gym lifting weights.
This is true.
Yeah.
He took his first reformer Pilates class.
Yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, what'd you think?
It was interesting. I've never taken Pilates class before that, and I don't know if you have anybody has taken Pilates classes before that, but it was not what I expected. It was in the sense that like you sit down on the reformer, which is like this bench with like all these contraptions attached to it, right? But then like you're really just doing a lot of like the normal weightlifting kind of movements and a lot of like different movements, but just on the reformer with bands essentially, whatever they're called. Springs
Yep.
that act as resistance for you.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's almost like if you took just resistance bands, attached them to a wall or a pole, and then did a few exercises like that. It's very
Yeah.
similar in
Yep.
style, except that instead of standing up and supporting yourself, you're really lying down the reformer and doing those kinds of things.
Yep.
Like when we were doing squats, I thought to myself, like, okay, well, what if I just had resistance bands and put them under my feet, and then whenever I stood up, it like went like higher resistance, and then I could squat it down and went lower resistance.
Yeah.
Or like if I was gonna do push-ups or like shoulder press, I could take resistance bands tied with something and like push against the resistance bands. And I feel like it'd be very similar to what we did in Pilates.
Yeah. No, 100%. I'd agree with that.
Besides that, my first impression was meh.
We're in the middle of doing this this Pilates set, and he goes, "Yeah, I don't know how this got popular." And just like, oh my god, it was just like stream of conscious thought that just got said out loud, and I just look over at the Pilates instructor, and she's cracking up.
Because like when I try new things, I want to like, I'm trying to understand people who do it, like yoga, people who do yoga, people who do like those dance workout classes, people who lift weights, people who do only cardio, people who do like who play sports for like exercise. I try to understand people who do that and why they enjoy it,
Yeah.
or like why they keep coming back to it. Why do they do it? I understand lifting weights. I lift weights. I understand running even because I understand it's like it feels good when you start getting good at running. Sports is like freaking self-explanatory. If you're decent at sports, it's freaking fun to play sports. I understand swimming. I understand yoga. I like yoga. I understand it. It's really good. I don't understand Pilates. I don't understand the people who do Pilates regularly and why they do it.
Got it.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. To be fair, I do think it was a little bit of a more basic class that you took, so I could see why it just kind of translated to what you already do in the gym, and you're kind of like, meh. But what I like about Pilates is it's great for a day where I don't want to wash my hair. It's really great about making all my joints feel compact. So, for example, I'm hypermobile. I dislocate super easily. I get subluxations in my shoulder. I have a labral tear in my hip. So when I do Pilates, it's a lot of light, gentle resistance at the end range of motion. You're getting through your full ranges of motion, and it just helps my joints feel healthy. I feel like I improve my range of motion, and I feel like it just keeps joint integrity, and I love that about Pilates. So that's why I like it. I could see why it's not everyone's jam, though. I get it.
It was an intro class, so like I'm not gonna be able to talk about it in depth.
Yeah.
But even intro to yoga I enjoyed. I don't know.
That's true.
It's different for everybody.
It's true.
We did bring our salt to Pilates class, right?
We did. We did
Yeah.
bring our salt to Pilates class.
Our little Element water bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, too, just to note, the Element packets can be pretty intense. So if you're not used to drinking salt, I would recommend take a half a packet and then water it down. That's
We
usually
started with
yeah.
it. We started with half a packet. I feel like recently I've just been putting the full packet in there.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get used to the taste after a while. There's another one, Liquid IV, that's out there. That's another decent brand.
Yep.
We started it with that one, but that one has sugar in it, which I wasn't the biggest fan of. And so that's why we swapped to Element instead. But you can do it, like, for example, if you hate the taste of salt and you're a little shocked by it, you can start with something like Liquid IV that has a tiny bit of sugar and then kind of work your way into the more extreme.
Yeah, and then Element brand, they sell these little packets of salt, but they're flavored. So like our favorite ones are the raspberry flavored one and the grapefruit flavored one.
Yeah.
And then there's like all these other ones. There's like a spicy one. There's like a chocolate one. There's like,
Oh.
yeah. Well,
Some people swear by doing hot chocolate with it, or I've heard
Yeah,
of people putting
so
it in coffee, but personal preference, not my fave. And I love chocolate. It's just not great as a
the
salty flavor.
chocolate one would be amazing to mix in with something else that's chocolatey.
Yeah.
So like if you have a chocolate protein shake or it's like chocolate something else, like put in the chocolate salt in there. That'd be good. Chocolate salt into water? No.
No.
Doesn't work right.
Plain salt is another one that's a really rough one to just kind of, they have a packet of just literally any you're drinking ocean.
It's not the worst. It's better than the chocolate one, I would say.
That's
But
true.
like, I don't know about that one either.
Yeah.
Um,
One thing is you can actually make your own electrolytes at home if you want. One thing I used to do before we started getting Element is I would take either plain water or I'd get coconut water because that has some natural electrolytes in it. And then you can do a squeeze of lime and then just a little bit of like pink Himalayan salt or whatever salt you want to use. And there, mix it up and there you go. And that's like homemade electrolytes that you can use.
yeah. Maybe we should try that too.
Yeah.
We could do that. I don't know. Moral of the story is eat more salt. Intake more salt. Generally speaking, healthy individuals just take in more salt. It's not going to be like, it's not going to be bad for you. It's not going to raise your blood pressure, especially if you're young. And then the FDA study, it's like they talk about averages, population averages. They talk about population metrics. Epidemiology always talks about reducing the health risk of populations, not individuals. And so generally speaking, population health is going to be driven by the unhealthiest people in that population. So the recommendations for those population-driven studies is going to be best applied to the unhealthiest individuals in those populations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you take 100 people and 10 of them are just like super sedentary, intaking so much processed food and salt in their diet, and their blood pressure is going through the roof, they're going to skew the average. And then the FDA is going to say like, oh, everybody should reduce the salt. It's like, no, those 10 people should reduce their salt. 50% of the people actually probably should be like intaking more salt. And then like whatever the rest, 40% of people should probably keep their salt about the same. You know what I mean? Pulling those metrics out of my butt. But like, that's the general thought.
Yeah, don't be afraid of salt. It's not something to be afraid of. I know the media is very like, don't eat salt. But also, too, use your best judgment. Go with what feels good to you. Do your own research. But to your point, sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
Going off of averages, that's another thing to look for just as far as your health in general. So when looking at blood work, labs, they're based on a population of people that is getting more and more unhealthy. So what is considered normal 50 years ago might not have been normal blood work because we're getting more and more unhealthy. So always filter through functional ranges or health range or like integrative medicine ranges, just if you can as a filter, because sometimes that'll catch things that normal medicine won't. Super side tangent, but that's my little tip in there.
Yeah, any stats. That like makes me think about any sort of statistics where it's just like the big one that always comes to mind. It's cliche. It says like, oh, 50% of marriages end in divorce.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh man, like take that stat, which is like for the entire population. That's what do you call it? BCAs. Yeah.
Okay.
So take the that 50% of marriages end in divorce is like a statistic based off the entire population of the U.S. So if you want to know about your chances of divorce, first you have to break it down by demographics, essentially. So every single region in the country has a different statistic. So first of all, you have to take that 50% and find whatever portion of that 50% is your region. Maybe in the Northeast is going to be like 40% divorce rates, right? Instead of like the South might be 60% or something. So we're in the Northeast. And in the Northeast now it goes down to 40%. Next, you have to break it down by education levels. And you'll find that depending on education levels, you have very, very different divorce rates. And so like people with a master's or bachelor's degree or something like that, divorce rates might go down to like even 20%. And then you have to break it down by race as well, where you're breaking down to whatever race that you are, and then your divorce rate might even go down from 20% to 10% even. And so it's just like, don't think of yourself as a statistic for the entire US population. Think of yourself as if you want to relate to any stats whatsoever, you can relate to the ones that is closest to your demographic inside that graded statistic.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah. He used to study finances, business, math, so he took a lot of stats class. So he's
Oh, yeah.
very knowledgeable on this stuff. More so than me, because when he broke it down for me. So, for example, when we started dating, I remember you had pulled out something. You basically told me that, I think, where we were talking about divorce, and you had brought that up specifically and kind of broke that down for me, which is something that was comforting to me, and I had never really considered before, because as a normal person who doesn't study stats and know this stuff, you hear all marriages end up in divorce, 50% chance.
Yep.
Then that's really overwhelming, and you're like, whoa, how does anyone really have a chance? Basically just flipping a coin.
Yep.
But to your point, not counting yourself in as just a statistic and kind of really looking at the numbers of it and realizing everyone really is unique and an individual, and you can't just make blanket statements like that apply to everybody.
Yeah, so we looked at the data together, and it was like 47% divorce rate overall, or something like that. And when we broke it down to our demographic, or whichever subsection of the population that applied to us,
Yeah.
me and you, the divorce rate went down to like 9%, I think.
Yeah.
And so it was very, very like small. And so I'm just like, don't even freaking worry about that crap. It's like, you see that huge like headline driving statistic, and you're just like, it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
Everybody should do that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Don't be like, oh, look at the crime rate here, or do this there. And it's like, no, like look at where you live and look at what applies to you, and then go from there.
Yeah. That's smart.
Yeah.
He's smart.
Same with like salt intake. I guarantee you, like the FDA is just like reduce the amount of salt, but if you break it down by like age, even, you know what I mean? Like, okay, if you're older, in the older age, like retirement age, yeah, reduce the amount of salt. If you're younger, freaking pile of salt on. Who cares?
Yeah, honestly.
Oh yeah.
It's really crazy though, because when you're reading the article, just seeing how really one study from this guy who just went insane with the salt and gave this rat level, first of all, a rat, not even human, just gave him levels that we would never even consider putting in our food. And that kind of, lit the fire for, oh, no one should ever eat salt ever. It's terrible for you and you're going to have a heart attack and die.
Yeah.
It's so crazy to me how some of these studies just get bent and twisted into ways that they should never be applied.
Everyone always tries to take like a study and apply the overarching conclusion to everybody, which you can't do. Like studies are good for like getting you information about population, but they don't help you with making choices for individual people.
Yeah.
They just don't. Unless, of course, you're doing a study specifically for 10 people with a rare disease, and then it's like, if you have the rare disease, yes, like, take the conclusion of that study.
True.
It applies to you, you know what I mean?
True.
It's just like, oh, people with this cancer have much better outcomes taking this medicine. Okay, great, give me that medicine.
Yeah. Yes and no, though. Goodness. No, with that one, sorry.
Yeah,
But,
I get it. Healthcare in general, yes, but cancer specifically, if you have a rare cancer, 100%. Use your brain, you know what I mean? Just think normally.
yeah. Also, too, when you're taking advice from a leading government body or things like that, also, too, just do your homework. Look where the money of the funding comes from, things like that. Because when you look at the FDA itself, it gets so much money from sugar companies and Coca-Cola and all these horrible companies that are putting our health at risk. And they're the ones funding all these studies that the FDA bases their decisions off of. And it's just, again, I could go on and on, but I'm not going to. I will refrain. But again, just take responsibility for your health. I guess that's what I'm trying to say is when it comes to something as important as your health, you have to take personal responsibility, because if you give that over to someone else, you lose all your power, which is not what you want.
Yeah, two big examples of the FDA kind of corruption. It's not really corrupt. Well, it is kind of corruption because there's a huge revolving door between FDA and like large pharmaceuticals. Is that fat's bad for you.
Yeah.
For decades, everyone was saying that like fat is bad for you. Eat these sugary substances instead. Like remove all the fat from your diet, replace it all with carbohydrates. And it's like, that's the opposite of what you want to do. You want a balanced diet. You probably want more fats, honestly, and like less carbs, because carbs are just like, they're not bad for you, but like too many carbs is really bad for you. It's like, it's going to be like bad outcomes. That's example number one. Freaking Big Sugar came in and said fat's bad for you, and then Big Sugar made all the money. You think it's a conspiracy theory? It's not. It's real. I know I know everybody like says like Big Sugar is not real, or
Oh, 100% it's
big
real.
other stuff, whatever.
You can follow the money
Yeah,
and see it's
exactly.
absolutely true.
The second one where I think the FDA is kind of corrupt is the food pyramid. Um, that thing's a piece of crap, and I think it was influenced again a little bit too much by the fact that sugar companies or carbohydrate companies in general just wanted you to buy their products compared to anything else.
Yeah.
And so like, don't take those things as fact from the FDA and just consume like a balanced meal, balanced diet.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to refrain because there's so many ways that I could go off on this, but I also too don't want to spread misinformation and just go off the cuff. I'd rather have like, especially with something as sensitive as that, I'd rather have a little bit more. I could say like, I know this for fact.
Yeah. Okay.
But, yeah.
All right. What was the other topic we want to talk about today?
Maintaining relationships long distance.
Long distance relationships. Okay. What do you want to talk about there?
It was his idea. Here, you go off with it.
Long distance relationships. So like, we're not talking about dating. I feel like if you're in a long distance relationship, dating, that's going to be a completely different topic, and that's like a whole big different bag of issues. But long distance friendships, where like after college you moved back to your own city and your friends moved back to their cities, and all of a sudden you're hours and hours away and you can't really hang out anymore. Like, how do you maintain those friendships? The answer is most of the time you're not. Especially if you move like really far away. Like if I'm from the Northeast, I'm from Boston, and if I went to college in California and then I went back to Boston after college, all my friends from California that live in California, I can't really stay friends with them actively. I can like text them all the time. I can send them memes. We can chat about like current topics and current affairs or whatever. But like, I'm never going to see them in person. And then if I did want to see them in person, I'd have to fly over there, which is absolutely expensive and time consuming, and it's going to be very difficult to maintain. So relationships that are going to be like a 5-hour flight away, friendships anyways, are going to be difficult to maintain. And I think you may have some tips on maintaining those a little bit more than I do. My side of things, I went to school locally, and then I had a bunch of friends who lived in New York, lived in Connecticut, and I tried to stay in contact with them as much as possible. So a couple of my friends live like an hour or two away, and I try to make it a point with them to see them every like month or two, just to keep in contact, to connect about our lives, to talk about things, to shoot the shit, as they say, and like, I don't know, celebrate small things if there are things to celebrate. Last week, I went to see some of my friends downtown. It was like a 30-minute drive downtown. It was a 30-minute for them the other direction to drive downtown. And like, we just sat around, had some beers, talked about life, and just caught up for a couple hours, and then called it a night. And I'm hoping that we're going to do that a little bit more often than we are right now, but I still see them every now and then. I consider them my good friends. I don't know, but and then this weekend I'm going to see some of my other friends from college, and we're going to meet halfway point where they live in Connecticut. So it'll be like, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour drive for both of us. But it'll be a good time. I think so.
I'm excited. It'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, if you're going to maintain relationships that are long distance, whether that's I used to consider when I was in LA long distance to be, I lived in Santa Monica and someone lived in Hollywood. That for me was long distance. It's because without traffic, it's like a 30-minute drive. With traffic, you're going to be sitting there for like an hour and a half. Anyways, so it could be anything like that, or it could be like in my situation where my friends that I grew up with are all in California and I live in Boston, Massachusetts now. So I think between all of those levels of distance, you have to stay intentional. That's the biggest thing. You have to not be afraid to be the person to reach out. I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, they should always reach out to me. But if you think about someone, shoot them a text or pick up the phone and call them. One thing I appreciate, especially from being out of state from my friends, is the ones who call. Because talking to people on the phone, especially if I can't see them, is just such a different way of connecting compared to texting. Because texting, it's so easy to just give some lazy answers. How are you doing? Good. How are you? Good. And then you're like, okay, that was a very exciting, thrilling text that was very juicy. So I think that's something that's really important, is just get comfortable with talking on the phone. And I think too, to your point of, you don't always keep in touch with the people that you think that you're going to keep in touch with. I know that I've experienced that a few times where, so for example, I moved from Northern California to Southern California, and then I moved from Southern California to Boston eventually. And friends along the way who I thought would stay in touch didn't necessarily, and that's not always a bad thing, because the people who are going to show up for you are going to show up for you, and they're going to stay loyal to you no matter what.
Yep.
And I think sometimes too, you'll be surprised at who ends up staying in your life that you didn't expect, which is really cool, because you can see some people may fall off and not show up for you the way that you wanted, but then other people will really show up for you in a surprising way that's really cool. So just staying open.
There were definitely friends in college that I thought I would keep in touch with after college, but it didn't really work out. And then every job I've had after that, I've always had like my friend group at work, right? Where like we'd always get lunch together, we would get drinks on the weekends together, or like after work on Fridays together. Sometimes we'd hang out on weekends and like go out to do like brunch and do other things. And like I didn't really keep in touch with almost anybody at my last two jobs, except for like maybe one or two people. And even them, it's a little bit difficult to keep in touch with, because one of them moved out to the West Coast, and then another one is around here, but I never talked to him anymore. Um, but yeah, trying to keep intentional about talking to them is going to be the most important thing. I know what worked for me specifically, and you probably won't appreciate this, is that I play video games with some of my friends. And so like I think I bonded with them originally playing video games with them a little bit. And the friends that I do want to keep in touch with, one from Connecticut, one around here, I do play video games with them. And then like we see each other online and play games together online. One of which I used to play Apex with one of my friends. And then I still play World of Warcraft with another one of my friends. I don't play actively with them. We just see each other online and we chat with each other.
Yeah.
That way we can still talk to each other kind of like an, I don't know, like a mutual space. Like imagine like you're in college, right? You live in one dorm, your friend lives in another dorm, and then you guys see each other in the common area, like in the lunchroom, like the cafeteria area. You know what I mean? You guys both go down to the cafeteria separately, and then you see each other in the cafeteria. You decide to sit and chat together at the cafeteria. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's one of those things. Like I might log on to the game, and then might be playing the game by myself, and then he logs on. We see each other online, so we start chatting while we're online with each other. And so it makes it kind of easier to keep in touch and like not lose contact with each other.
Sure. Similar to you, but in a different way. I had a couple girlfriends where we would read the same book, and then we would catch up on the phone about it and kind of chat about the book, which was a different way of staying connected. But sometimes things like that can actually really help. So I don't play video games. Books has been good for me, but there are other ways too, where maybe you guys watch a movie together and we're like, hey, let's call and chat after the movie and see what it was about. But or whatever that is for you, right? If you're into sports, maybe watching a sport.
I knew a guy that did that all the time. He and his buddies all set up a Discord together, and they would just be constantly in and out going onto the Discord and just like having like different chat rooms and like setting up different like essentially movie dates. Where they're just like, yo, this new movie came out, everyone want to watch it? It's like, yeah, let's watch it. So instead of going to the movies together, because they all live in different places, they go into a Discord chat room, one person shares their screen, and they all watch a movie together on that screen, on the computer.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's a solution to a problem, because like they don't live in the same cities together, but they still want to go see a movie together.
Right.
It doesn't, it didn't really resonate with me, because I'd still rather just go to the movies. But if your friends live so far away and you want to go to the movies, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think too, kind of going down the same road as the intentionality, just actually having conversations with people instead of just having, like, I know I have some friends that are like meme relationships where we'll just shoot memes back to each other or things like that, but that will only carry you so far. And I think if you really want to have that friendship go with you into the future, you need to have that connection in some way. So finding ways that you can actually have real conversations, whether it be over the phone, FaceTime, whatever it is, when you can book, maybe you can plan a trip together at some point where you guys can reconnect. But just whatever it is, there needs to be actual conversation happening, because if it stays at meme level, that friendship will fizzle out eventually.
I think friendships with girls and boys also are different.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't know. Like me and the boys, whenever we hang out or like see each other online or something like that, we barely even catch up with each other. All we do is just talk shit to each other and play video games together. You know what I mean? Sometimes we yell at each other because we're just angry at each other, like how we're performing in the video game. But like, it is what it is. I think that's what like our friendship's based off of, you know? Like, I was playing Apex with John all the time. So I was playing Apex with my friend all the time. And we'd literally be playing for like weeks or even months, like in duration, like, and I just wouldn't know anything about his life.
Yeah.
But it's fine. Like, he's got a job, he's got a life, and like if his like a big thing happened to him, he'd tell me.
Yeah,
but I'm not gonna pry.
That's a different level of friendship though, because you and that specific friend have been friends since you were like yay high. Like,
that's true.
So I think friends that you've had for way back are really deep friendships. So for example, the person who was like my maid of honor, essentially, she and I can go stretches for forever without actually having a real conversation. We can just pick up right back where we left it. But that was built on years and years of just deep friendship, which is why we can pull that off. But I think if you were to do that with a different friend that you don't know as well as that friend, then it might not work.
Agreed. And say me and him have a history together. We know so much about each other. He was my best man at our wedding.
Yeah.
And so
my wedding. Okay.
And so yeah, it's like if I ever see him online or if I ever talk to him in person, I can just kind of just ask him like, "Hey, what's up?" And he'll just tell me the details, and I'm like, okay, let's move on. Let's do whatever we want to do.
Yeah.
I feel like we've talked about shit for so long together. We've been through some crap, and then it's like it's not that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah. That's what I love though about friendships, kind of seeing how they evolve over time and just different stages of life and all that.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
But I don't know. So we're gonna see some of my friends this weekend. They live in Connecticut and all over like the area. All of them live about an hour away or more. So it'll be fun.
Yeah.
We'll see what they're up to.
Yeah, I will say, so if you're in a similar situation to mine where you're the one who moved, number one, it should be on you a little bit more to stay in touch with the people that you want to stay in touch with because you are the person who left. And second of all, wherever you move to next, don't be afraid to be a little bit aggressive about making friends. I wouldn't say aggressive, that's not a good word, but don't be afraid to be that person to be like, hey, I just moved here. I need friends. Will you grab coffee with me? So for example, when I first moved here, I was interviewing with different apartments with potential roommates. And there was one apartment where I was really close to living with these girls. They were really cool. And just the space itself didn't work out compared to something else I had found. And so I was telling them, hey, I'm really sorry, but this just isn't going to work for me. But I need friends. You girls seem really cool. Would it be okay if we hung out sometime? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. And one of them I met up for coffee with once and never again. But the other one, she's actually becoming a good friend of mine. And so you never know whether that's going to take you. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there because that's honestly the only way that you're going to make friends as an adult. So that and just doing different things like, for example, picking up a hobby, classes, going to yoga, whatever it is. That's another way of more naturally doing it. But I do feel like when you're younger, it's a lot easier to make more natural friendships, whereas an adult, especially if you're working from home or anything like that, you have to go out of your way a little bit because otherwise it's just people are going to stay in their own little comfort zones and their own little bubbles.
It also depends on the region you're in.
Yeah.
I feel like you had a much easier time making friends on the West Coast versus on the East Coast. It's much harder to make friends out here.
Yeah, it's never been hard for me to make friends ever in my life before until I moved to the East Coast. Because in LA, no one is from LA. And so everyone's more open, they're friendly, they all know what it's like to be in a different city than where you're from and make new friends and build a new life. And people are just more excited to meet new people in general. Whereas out here, people are like, I've had my friends since kindergarten, and who are you to take time away from my friends and my family?
Pretty much.
So it's a slower going. That and too, and there's this weird suspicion I feel like people have when people hear that I'm from California of, well, why did you move here? Why would you leave California? And when are you moving back? And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, so 2 points. There's the you told me this joke, I think. It's like, I met all my friends where everyone makes their friends in kindergarten.
It's
It's
true.
like,
His
okay,
best
like,
friends
where
are
do you
from
make your
mine.
friends? It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, my best friend I met in middle school, 6th grade.
Yeah,
Yeah. We were, what, 12 years old?
goodness.
Yeah, so I'm 34, 30, almost 35 now, yeah. So, geez, it's 20 years now. And the second point I was going to make, crap, what was the second point I was going to make?
That you love me and I'm your favorite?
Yes, 100%. No, something about like making friends here and blah, blah, blah.
Differences between California and here and how you make your friends. You make them in college if you didn't make them in kindergarten. And then if you don't make them in college, then you'll never make them again.
Oh, suspicions about California. No, so like people out here, when they hear you're from California, they never hear about people moving here from California.
Yeah.
So you're an anomaly. They're like, you moved here from California? It's like, wait, what'd you do? Everyone around here always espouses that they want to move to California.
Yep.
And they know a lot of people who move to California, but they didn't know a lot of people who came here.
Yeah.
And it's like, why'd you come here?
Yeah. And then people are like, well, have you been through winter yet? And I'm like, yes, I've been through several. I know it gets cold here.
Yeah. It's just rare.
Yeah.
It's like the rule is to go out there, and the exception is to come out here.
Yeah.
So
I will say, so it's been hard to make friends out here, but I feel like once you've been out here after a period of time, if people realize, oh, you're not actually going anywhere and you're not going to move back to California, then they start to relax and be like, ah, da, 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 and you start to make friends.
agreed. As long as you don't pick up SAD,
Yeah.
you're fine.
Right.
Seasonal affective disorder or
Yep.
something like that, where it's like all of a sudden during the winters you're just like super depressed.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of Californians, if they move here, they might pick it up because they're just not used to the cold, cloudy winters, and then they just can't handle it because they're just sad half the year round.
Yeah.
And then summer comes, and all of a sudden they love it, and they realize, oh my God, I just want summer year round, and then back to California.
Okay, so let me give you a little contrast to that. So I was mentally prepared when I came here for blizzards every week. That was where my mentality was, is there's going to be blizzards. I'm going to get hypothermia at some point, probably frostbite. It's just going to be really rough, and I'm going to live in an igloo for half the year. Like, that was mentally where I was at. No kidding. And first of all, it doesn't snow that much here. Second of all, what I wasn't ready for was that it gets dark at like 3:30 p.m. Whereas in California, even when it's wintertime, it still doesn't get dark until 4:35, somewhere around there. You get more sun than what you get here.
Yep.
And at least you get sunny days compared to what you get here. I feel like I moved to Seattle sometimes. The part that's killer for me, though, is that we've had 2 out of the 3 summers that I've been here, 2 very, very rainy summers.
Yeah.
And that has been the struggle for me, because I can deal with the winter if I know I'm going to have a summer. But if I don't get a summer, then I'm like, ah! So I think kind of going back to what we were talking this past Sunday of just me prioritizing getting outside and taking advantage of the weather when it's fantastic. And then also to just making an effort to get outside and do the things that I really love outside when I can, to avoid that sadness, like you said.
Gotta avoid the sadness.
Yep.
Gotta enjoy what you can enjoy.
Yeah.
take the warm days for what they are and just try to take advantage of them as much as possible.
That and mentally stop comparing. I've been really trying to stop comparing. Oh, I could be in California right now where it's 76 degrees and sunny, and just really actually be here, because I think there's a quote, comparison is a thief of joy, and I think that's absolutely true, because if mentally I'm partway in California being like, I could have been in sun right now, then I'm never going to enjoy where I am right now and make a life of it. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So much for talking about long distance friendships, huh?
Well, I don't know how much more you can go on that.
That's true. What's the moral of the story from long distance friendship is that you should you should put in effort for the friendships that you want to keep.
Yeah.
And then it's like they should put in effort on their side, and if it's mutual, then you'll keep it. If it's not mutual, it'll eventually fade away anyways.
Yeah. And that's okay.
And it's a little sad, but that's okay.
Yeah.
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 All right. Well, those are the 2 topics we want to cover.
Any stream of
Stream of
conscious thoughts?
Stream of consciousness, stream of thoughts. I'm tired.
You and me both.
My eyes are getting like that feeling or that droopiness when it's like that haze is coming in and just like want to like and go.
So this week we started getting up early for the gym. Yeah. We're not, by we I mean me, but I feel like you've kind of come to my side of things a little bit more, where we're not morning people and we're not morning workout people, but we're trying to become morning workout people. So we've been getting up at 6:30 and the last 4 days. So we went to bed at 8:30 last night, I think, because we were so tired. So It's an adjustment for sure.
I don't know if it's because we're not morning people or if because we're not eating enough.
Could be both.
I think it's because we're just not eating enough. I think our diet has changed a little bit. Where we're going hard at the gym. We're both lifting weights and doing cardio, and we're just not getting enough calories during the day. And so because we're not getting enough calories during the day, we're just not able to recover at night. And then we get up in the morning and then we push ourselves some more, but we just don't have enough like fuel in our bodies in order to keep going.
That's true. That's a good point, because if we're getting up earlier and burning more calories because we're up for longer, then adding some more calories to our diet would be good.
Maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe I know that I need to have a little more calories, because it's like 2 days of rest day, essentially, yesterday and today, and then like I still don't feel like I can do like a workout tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I just don't feel up to it. But we'll see.
Any other thoughts?
Tomorrow's Friday.
Yay.
Should be a slowish day at work, and then the weekend, I'm really looking forward to seeing my buddies. Should be fun. And then kind of sad that the winter season's over. We brought in our snowboards from the car and put them away in the closet, so no more snowboarding for us. I wish we went more, but like this winter was awful.
Yeah.
Not good for snowboarding. And then we're gonna be on our second book of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
The first book was so short.
Yeah. It's really interesting going back as an adult and rereading Harry Potter, because, I mean, speaking for myself, the last time I read it, I was maybe 12, 13, 11, however old I was. So this book is probably the longest book I've ever read at the time. And now going back, you're just like, oh, it's a small book. Like, there's just a different perspective coming at it as an adult versus a kid.
I agree. And then like we're a little bit more deliberate about reading this also, because I remember reading Harry Potter when I was a kid too, and I remember like staying up all hours of the night, just like sprinting to read it.
Yeah.
I couldn't put it down, so like I really wanted to know what happened next, and I was sprinting to read it.
Oh, I remember just being in my room with the covers over my bed and my little flashlight, trying not to wake up my parents, because they'd be like, Bethany, go to sleep.
Yeah. And so it's like, while I probably enjoyed the book as much as I could when I was younger, I probably wasn't very like patient about understanding everything, reading everything, like connecting all the dots while I was reading it. I was just like page turning just to see what the story was. And I feel like as an adult, it's not that we're going to go too much slower, but like we'll be able to understand it better.
Yeah, we can savor it for sure. Yeah. Also, too, I remember as a kid, you wanted to be the first person to finish the book so that no one ruined the story for you.
Yeah.
Because you would hear all your friends talking about it, and you're like, I'm not at that chapter yet. And so I remember there was one dance recital, specifically it was performance weekend for me. I was a dancer, and everyone was reading the book. And so in between being on stage and being in the green room, we would just like all be back there with our books trying to read it.
Yeah, I remember all the spoilers and how like a controversy that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways.
And then what am I thinking about? I'm tired as well. I feel a little bit loopy. And yeah, not too much else outside of that. I've been working on some projects for work, which I'm really excited to share soon. And yeah, life is good. Life is good. People have been asking like, oh, how are you guys doing? How's married life? And honestly, all good things. And
I agree. Chugging along.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Episode 13.
Yeah.
Salt and long distance relationships.
We.
Sorry, long distance friendships. I should keep saying friendships. Because saying relationships is like...
That's true. That's a whole different topic for another day.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time. We'll announce it on our Instagram when we do.
Yeah.
Subscribe, hit the like button, and check us out on our social media, which you'll see in a second.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Guys.